at a certain point, you may or may not be there, but at a certain point, you need to think about the type of time investments you're making on the client facing side. What does that mean? It means whenever you take on a new client or decide to keep an existing client, you are essentially taking on the opportunity cost of taking time to find another client or nourishing another client that's more important, that maybe brings in more revenue or has been a very stable client for you. And so it's very easy at a certain point to be winning in one hand and losing in the other hand. So what you have to keep in mind is, how difficult of a client this is, how demanding they are in terms of how much time they take. What's the time investment like? Because you only have a certain amount of hours during the day. You have to split your 8, 10, 12, 15, I don't know how many hours you work a day, but that's divided by your total client base. So there's actually going to be a cost to you, the business owner or manager, whenever you bring on a new client. Typically, the highest cost is the onboarding process. So you have to integrate that client into your account management system, your CRM, your pipeline, whatever you want to call it. However, that typically, if it's, so long as it's not a high maintenance client, that diminishes a little bit with time and stabilizes over time once there's more trust, once the client understands what they can expect, once you're in a routine with the client and you've sort of developed how many follow-ups you're going to do with that client, whether it's on a monthly or per session basis with that client, or semi-annual or annual or whatever it is. You've sort of established the expectation of what you're doing and what you're showing them and the results that they can get and things like that. That stabilizes and normalizes with time. But at the beginning, you need to spend more time with new clients. So whenever you get a new client, you should be considering not only how much time you're currently going to be taken away from your other clients that are maybe long time important clients that generate a significant portion of your current revenues. So you have to sort of look at it like that, because I find a lot of people just hustle, more clients is better, etc. But if you start to have a bit of that leaky bucket syndrome, and all of a sudden you have too many clients to the point where you're not able to do as good of a job for all the clients, or for your most important clients, or for your new clients, to give them enough attention so that they don't churn or leave at a very early stage, so that they don't turn over at a very early stage. So these are some considerations that are less obvious, I would say, at a certain point in business, where you're just sort of in the middle. Maybe you're in the in-between stage of going from, you have unlimited amounts of time and you could serve even 10, 15, 20, 100 clients if they were to come to you, just as well. And your processes are bulletproof and you just don't have as big of a pipeline because you're in an early stage. Or maybe you have a service or a product where there is no time cost to taking on a new client. Maybe it's purely software based and there's very little onboarding involved, etc. Maybe it's something transactional where you're selling a product and it's all fulfilled for you and you have drop shipping. So really just more transactions is better, no matter what. You have unlimited supply, you have fulfillment taken care of, there's no time cost on your side. So there are particular situations where the time cost is less, or is just not there. There is no time cost in growing your business, which would be really ideal. So either your processes are so tight that it just really doesn't matter. It's not going to slow you down in any way if you get another client on board, customer on board, or you just, it's just not applicable, that there just is no time cost. There's no time that it takes to bring on and serve new clients with your product or service. So you got to keep that in mind when you're bringing on new clients. And I am very, very discerning of not only the company I keep around me, but also the quantity of clients that are going to take away from my precious clients, which are the foundation of the business, which are the ones that have been there for years and make up the majority of our business figure, which are the ones that are the most loyal and likely to still be here in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. So I want to take as little time away from those when bringing on new clients. And if I see any red flags right out the gate when I'm bringing on a new client, I pull away. I say, listen, this is it, or I'll adjust the pricing accordingly. If I think that they're going to be a high maintenance client, I'll say, look, you have a special situation and you're going to take a lot of our time, and we're going to have to basically interrupt our workflow significantly to get this done. And then you put a price tag on that so that it makes sense for you, so that it's justified. But you shouldn't be just looking at new clients as all equal necessarily, unless they are in your particular case. So if there is no difference between one client versus another client, that's another thing that will allow you to, I guess, more easily scale your business without any sort of opportunity cost or potential loss. But these are sort of micro considerations that are nuances to some business owners, but I've managed to really understand sort of the nature of each client and what I can expect when onboarding new clients, and sort of what their situation is and their commitment level and serious level and all of this, and whether it's just going to be essentially a waste of time because the client either has expectations that are unrealistic, or is out the gate is maybe jaded and came from a bad situation with another provider. Those guys who are jaded, it's very unlikely, to be honest, that you're going to be able to change their mind. At a certain point, if you have a customer that went from provider to provider to provider to provider, eventually, they're the problem. It's not the provider the problem, it's them who's the problem. So when I see someone who, for example, has been in business for a very long time, I'm talking 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, and they don't even have a provider, okay? There's no provider at all. Jesus Christ, I'm sorry. There's apparently Armageddon happening here on this highway. So basically, if you see a client that has red flags that you're bringing on, so either they just keep on churning from whichever provider they're with, they've never had a long-term relationship, and they've been having more one-night stands with the different providers, or they tell you out the gate that they have extremely high expectations for whatever reason, and you can tell that this is already gonna be a real problem, okay? Not because you're not good at what you do, but because their expectations are simply too high no matter what. I met one recently, and he was making a profit from his advertising, but he had flat out stopped it because in his head he wasn't making enough of a profit. But to me, as long as you're churning a profit of some sort after your expenses, after your advertising, after your staff, after your rent, whatever it is you're doing is worth it, unless of course you have better marketing channels that could bring you a higher return on your investment. But in this case, this particular potential client became, let's call it skeptical or dissatisfied or unwilling to participate in advertising at a point where he wasn't rolling that budget over into something else. He knowingly, while he was making a profit from his advertising, decided, I'm going to cut that channel regardless, and I don't have any alternative for that advertising spend, and I'm going to let my competitors eat that share of the market, even though I could be taking home a profit. So when you have a customer like that, that signals to me that their expectations are potentially unrealistically high and that they're going to be very difficult to please. So that's just one instance, but there's other instances as well. There's some clients that we brought on who are just what I would call generally disagreeable as humans. In other words, nothing that happens in life is ever good enough, or is ever wow, or is ever great, or is ever special, or is ever exceeding their expectations, let alone barely meeting their expectations. So in other words, the best you're ever going to get out of this customer is like a nod, like check, like okay, fine, like I'll sign off on that, or fine, like I'll consider that a pass. Okay, so if out of 100%, the best you can ever do is 60% and just pass by the skin of your teeth, you want to avoid this client like the plague. Okay, like the plague. You don't want them anywhere near your employees. They're going to stress them out. So the first thing I did with this customer, because she was being difficult, was I took this person away from my employees. I was managing them all of a sudden. And then when I realized that, yep, they're really difficult, I got rid of them. I gave them an exit. I gave them a door to get out, and that was it. Keep this in mind. Very important.